We begin this discourse with a solemn examination into the architectonics of Masonic philosophy. Our purpose is to construct, not with stone and mortar, but with reason and inquiry, a deeper understanding of its foundational principles, its grand structural designs, and its ultimate, often elusive purpose. To do so, we shall draw exclusively from the core texts and the seminal thinkers of the craft, allowing the philosophy to articulate its own intricate form.
We commence our study with this profound declaration, drawn from a Masonic allegorical drama. These words, spoken by the character Zerubbabel, are far more than a mere dramatic flourish. They represent the very cornerstone upon which the entire philosophical edifice of Freemasonry is erected. It is a categorical statement on the primacy of inner truth over external validation. It posits that integrity is not merely a virtue to be desired, but the absolute prerequisite for the construction of a worthy life. Without it, any structure one might build, be it of wealth, power, or reputation, is built upon sand, destined to be, in its spiritual reality, nothing more than a ruin.
Our intellectual roadmap for this examination is thus laid out. We shall first consider the individual, exploring the Masonic conception of character as the unyielding foundation of all else. From this foundation, we will proceed to an exposition of the core tenets that serve as the pillars of the craft. Thereafter, our view shall broaden to encompass the fraternity's stated mission in the world, its great work. We will then address certain divergent and controversial interpretations before concluding with an inquiry into the ultimate Masonic quest, the search for absolute truth.
We turn first then to the foundation. Within Masonic thought there is a clear and unambiguous doctrine. Before any great work may be undertaken in the world, the individual must first construct a temple of personal morality. Before one may hope to bring light to the world, one must first be a vessel of that light. This initial section is therefore dedicated to the exploration of that internal and most essential of all structures, the temple of human character.
Let us now delve more deeply into the allegory presented by Zerubbabel. The temple to which he refers is not a physical edifice of stone, but a potent metaphor for the soul, the conscience, the very character of a man. The pronouncement is unequivocal. Any worldly attainment, be it material wealth, public acclaim, or temporal power, is rendered utterly void if it is procured through the sacrifice of one's moral integrity. Such a bargain turns success into a hollow shell. The inner sanctum, the very seat of the self, is left in a state of desolation, a ruin. For Masonic philosophy, all that follows, all that is to be built, must rest upon this singular, non-negotiable foundation of an unimpeachable character.
Having established the foundation of character, we must now ask, what are the great pillars that support this philosophical superstructure? What are the core principles that give it strength and form? For this, we must turn our attention to one of the most prolific and influential Masonic philosophers, Albert Pike, whose writings provide much of the lexicon for our inquiry.
A central and recurring motif in Masonic symbolism is the concept of light. It is crucial to comprehend that this is not a static state of being, but rather the object of a perpetual journey, what Pike describes as a march and a struggle. This light is the symbolic summation of humanity's highest ideals. It is virtue, the moral excellence that guides action. It is manliness, in the classical sense of fortitude and civic responsibility. It is intelligence, the faculty of reason that dispels ignorance. And it is liberty, the freedom from all forms of tyranny, whether they seek to enslave the body, the mind, or the human spirit.
Here, in Pike's own words from his magnum opus, Morals and Dogma, the concept is made explicit. He frames the entirety of the Masonic endeavor as a relentless forward movement away from the privation of darkness, which he defines as tyranny and oppression, and toward the illumination of light. It is a pilgrimage that must be undertaken by the individual for the perfection of his own soul, and simultaneously by the nation for the advancement of society as a whole.
Pike elucidates further, revealing that this struggle toward the light is not merely an external one, waged against the world's tyrannies. It is perhaps more fundamentally an internal war. He defines Freemasonry as the process by which the higher, divine nature within a person achieves dominion over the lower animal nature. It is the conquest of the chaotic appetites and passions by the ordering principles of the moral sense and of reason. This internal victory, this establishment of a rightly ordered soul, is what he terms the true holy empire.
This description of a constant, lifelong struggle, waged simultaneously against internal passions and external darkness,
naturally gives rise to a critical question. Such a profound and continuous effort requires an immense and inexhaustible strength. From what wellspring, then, does a Mason draw the requisite fortitude for this arduous and unceasing spiritual warfare?
The answer is embedded within the symbolic language of the craft itself. The very first word of Pike's morals and dogma is force. This is no accident. The word carries deep historical and symbolic weight, alluding to the French term for strength and, most importantly, connecting directly to the two great bronze pillars that stood at the porch of King Solomon's temple. These pillars, named Boaz and Jachin, are foundational symbols in Masonry, representing strength and establishment respectively.
This historical catechism, from a French ritual dating to the 18th century, reveals the source of this power with startling clarity. When the senior brother is asked the meaning of the pillar Boaz, the pillar of strength, the answer is unambiguous: my strength is in God. Therefore, within this philosophical framework, the force required to wage the great internal and external struggle toward the light is understood to be derived not from man himself, but from a divine wellspring.
Having examined the required character of the individual and the divine source of his strength, we now broaden our perspective. We must move from the internal, microcosmic temple of the self to the external, macrocosmic stage of the world. What then is Masonry's collective purpose? What is its stated mission, its great work, in the larger sphere of human affairs?
According to Pike, the primary mission is clear: to act as a global agent for peace. He posits that Masonry's purpose is to be a unifying force in the world, working to mitigate conflict and to foster a spirit of harmony and brotherhood that transcends the artificial divisions of politics, nationality, and creed. The ideal is to bind all the disparate forms of human governance into a single great fraternity of peace.
This mission for global peace is articulated as a crusade. However, it is a crusade of a peculiar kind. Its enemies are not nations or peoples, but the abstract forces that breed conflict and suffering. It is a war waged against ignorance, the absence of light, against intolerance and fanaticism, which turn conviction into cruelty, against superstition, which enslaves the mind, and against uncharitableness and error, which divide humanity from itself.
To effectively prosecute this crusade of ideals, Masonic teachings prescribe a clear and demanding code of conduct for its members. This code synthesizes personal and civic responsibilities. The Mason is enjoined to uphold truth and justice as supreme values, to live a life of virtue, and to cultivate a rational mind free from superstition. This personal rectitude is then directed outward in devotion to humanity, country, and family. The duties culminate in an act of responsibility: to assist others, to be of good morals, and to consider the protection of liberty a sacred obligation.
It must be acknowledged, however, that like any philosophy of significant influence, Masonry has not been immune to controversial and divergent interpretations. We shall now, in the spirit of dispassionate inquiry, examine a starkly contrasting vision of its purpose, a vision that stands in profound opposition to the orthodox principles we have heretofore explored.
We are here presented with two irreconcilable visions, both attributed to the same author. On one side, we have the definitive statement from Pike's central philosophical work, Morals and Dogma, which defines Masonry as the world's great peace society. On the other, we have a statement from a letter alleged to have been written by Pike, which outlines a design to foment global conflict for revolutionary ends. It is academically crucial to note the disparity in the nature of the sources. One is a magnum opus, the foundational text of a philosophical system. The other is a controversial document whose authenticity is the subject of intense historical debate. We present them here, side by side, not to adjudicate their validity, but to illustrate the profound conflict in interpretation that exists.
For the final section of our examination, we return from the world of action and controversy to the core philosophical process that underpins the entire Masonic endeavor. Beyond the building of character, beyond the great work in the world, what is the ultimate objective, the telos of a Masonic life? It is the perpetual, all-consuming search for truth.
Masonic philosophy draws a critical distinction between two orders of truth. First, there are the relative truths. These are the manifold fragments of reality that mortals are capable of grasping through the various lenses of science, philosophy, and religion. They are true, but only partially so. The ultimate goal, however, is the pursuit of absolute truth. This is conceived as the singular, unified, underlying reality from which all the fragmented relative truths emanate. It is the final source, the ultimate verity, a goal so profound as to be perhaps eternally beyond complete human comprehension.
As the Masonic author Yusuf Kokdamar articulates, the entire purpose is this progression. The philosophical life is a journey from the many towards the one, from the fragmented reflections of truth that we can perceive, ever onward towards the singular source of that light. The emphasis here is on the search itself. While the destination is the absolute, the meaning is found in the striving, the constant movement toward that ultimate reality.
This conception of an ultimate, perhaps transcendent goal leads us to our final and most essential question. If one is to embark upon a quest for the ultimate truth of the cosmos, for the absolute itself, where must such a journey begin? What is the first step on this ultimate pilgrimage of the soul?
The answer to this final question brings our entire discourse full circle, returning us to the foundation from which we began, the individual. The Masonic path teaches that the great search for universal, absolute truth must begin with the intimate search for self-truth. The first step on the path toward the external infinite is a step inward. One must first seek to know oneself, for it is within the soul and conscience of the human being that a reflection of the divine, a spark of the grand architect of the universe, is said to be found. The macrocosm is sought through the microcosm.
Herein lies the great philosophical paradox. The grandest, most universal of quests begins not in the heavens, but in the quiet, inner temple of the self.
To be continued. Support us, please like and subscribe to our channel.